Hello everyone and welcome to Movao Live. I'm your host Rebecca Legon. Today we have a very exciting webinar. We are going to be taking a deep dive into the C-Leg. I have an incredible panel of guests joining us today. We have Ali from the Ottobock Academy, and he's going to be telling us all about the latest C-Leg 4 update and all its newly improved functions and features. We have myself, Kira, Suzanne and David, and we're all C-Leg wearers, and we are going to be sharing our personal experiences of life with a C-Leg. Throughout this webinar, we want to hear from you, our audience. This is a space for you to ask the questions that you've been wanting to find the answers to, whether that be on any challenges you've been having, or if you just want to connect with any of our panel, we want to hear from you. We will do our very best to get back to you throughout this live webinar. However, if we don't, we will. And if you're watching the live recording, please do continue to send those questions because we really want to keep the conversation flowing. Ottobock understands that all amputees are on a different journey, and the more people we can connect with, the more we can support globally. Right, let's get started with a brief introduction with everybody. And Ali, let's begin with you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, I'm Ali Ward. I'm with the Ottobock UK Academy team. So I'm a prosthetist by training, and my day-to-day job is a mixture of training education, technical support, and assisted fittings with you guys out in the field and with the prosthetists in the field. So yeah, great to be here, and thanks. I'll pass the mic to David.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm David Rose. I'm chair of the Limbless Association. I experienced a severe trauma limb loss at the age of 23 when I was knocked off my motorcycle by someone driving on the wrong side of the road. After that, I've been working for 40 years now to support people living with limb loss and limb difference. And I'm currently a patient representative on the NHS England Rehabilitation, Disability and Spinal Cord Injury Clinical Reference Group. I previously worked with the UK government as an advisor on issues relating to employment and vocational training for disabled people. And finally, I've served for 30 years as a magistrate. I'm currently working with the Ministry of Justice to improve access for disabled people to justice in England and Wales.
Hi everyone, my name is Kira Rush and I am the founder and chief executive of charity Movao. I have been an amputee for 23 years and a C-Leg user for 22. I'm probably, in my opinion, the biggest fan of the C-Leg and was part of the campaign to get the C-Leg on the NHS to ensure that everybody has access to it, and lots of people are involved in that, but it has changed people's lives, and later on I'll talk to you about how it's changed my life. And that's it, thanks.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Sergeant Sachdeva. I'm a senior product manager at Amazon by profession, and I've been an amputee for 22 years, C-Leg user for the past 8 years. We'll talk more about it. And in addition to this, I'm a gym rat, so we'll talk more about that as well.
And a little introduction for myself. My name is Rebecca Legon. I'm the Movao editor. I'm an inclusive model and I'm really passionate about adaptive sports and fitness. And I was born with limb difference. I have been wearing a prosthesis all my life, and I've been wearing the C-Leg since 2017. Right, now we all got to know each other a little bit more. Let's start with the technical deep dive. Ali, let's start at the beginning. Yep. What are the benefits of a microprocessor knee over a non-microprocessor knee?
Thanks. I think one of the core differences when you go from a mechanical knee to microprocessor knee is that effectively the computer that is the microprocessor part is able to monitor what's happening in real time. In the case of the C-Leg, 100 times per second, and so it's really an increase in safety that is the fundamental biggest difference that you guys will have all realised, I think, from wearing a C-Leg. So this effectively is using, like say, a microprocessor, but a series of different sensors that are looking at, you know, what stage of the gait cycle you're at as you're walking along. And as environments that you come across change, then these sort of making decisions on whether to keep you safe and stable with the resistance on, and when to switch the resistance into swing. So whether you're on, you know, slopes and stairs, or whether you're walking on flat ground, it can tell the difference very, very, very accurately. And I think that's the big difference, is that, you know, there are mechanical knees that can try and do the same, but they can potentially be tricked more easily because there's less sensor information.
That's when you pull them.
Yeah, and so you could be walking along absolutely fine, and then you just happen to hit your heel on a big stone and it throws the knee out. And on some mechanical knees, that could be that you're on the floor before you know it.
Without knowing,
Yeah, so I think in the case of microprocessor knees, the core functionality of that safety element is kind of the biggest difference, that you're sort of not paying for, but you know that you're actually, that's why they cost this money, is the technology is there to keep you safe. So then beyond that, there's the ability to then do other algorithms and other clever things to affect other parts of your life that you might come across while you're wearing one as well. So yeah,
incredible.
there's some very, very clever people in
Yeah.
Vienna, and I don't profess to know a fraction of what those guys know about making these things do what they do. So yeah.
Yeah. We all love them.
Yeah.
So can you tell us all about the C-Leg 4 latest update, all its new functions and features, and what it can do now that it can do before?
Yeah, of course. So I think you find that microprocessor knees are always sort of constantly evolving slightly. So the guys in Vienna are always coming up with new features, functions, whether it be in the case of for the GDMX4, for example, there might be elements that then can come forward and be brought back into the kind of C-Leg as well. Caneva might develop a mode, and then the guys try and implement that into the next update for C-Leg. So we're always trying to evolve. Although C-Leg 4 has been C-Leg 4 for a number of years, there's been iterations and improvements along the way. So the most recent was a relatively small one but could have a big effect, which was that we included a change of what we call the IP rating.
Yeah.
And it caused a little bit of confusion because the C-Legs changed to be IP68, which is the 6 means water resistance, and the 8 means dust resistance. So it's quite a high level of IP rating, but IP ratings by their definition are only applied to electronic components. So people get confused sometimes between different people claiming their knees are IP this, IP that. Whereas realistically, yeah, it's just actually the electronic parts are protected from water, fresh water only.
Which is great if you're into hiking and it rains on you.
Yeah, absolutely. So within reason, it's got a high level of water resistance against fresh water. But the problem then comes is that you run into this issues if you're in salt water or chlorinated water, because the mechanical parts, the metal parts, potentially could corrode in those environments. So still not perfect, but certainly an improvement on previous.
Yeah, absolutely. The feature for me, which is obviously incredible, is the stumble and fall feature. It saved me from probably a lot of you guys as well, from many embarrassing moments. I used to be one of those amputees who could literally be standing there in a conversation, and then all of a sudden, without even realising it, I'd be on the floor and you don't even know it's happening. And that's just such an amazing innovation. How does it actually work?
It's just magic. So yeah.
It's honest.
No, it is super clever, and actually most microprocessor knees these days actually have stumble recovery.
Yeah.
But I think where we're looking with the Ottobock knees is that we actually have something now called Stumble Recovery Plus that's across the range of all the microprocessor knees that we produce. And the big difference is that stumble recovery traditionally was working in a swing extension situation. So you got the leg going into flexion, and as your leg is coming back through, if you catch the ground, on a mechanical knee, you'd likely be on the floor. And most microprocessor knees can deal with that in some way to different levels with keeping people safe in that situation. But what we have now is Stumble Recovery Plus, means that we also have something that's stumble recovery in the swing flexion direction. So two good examples would be when someone's learning to walk for the first time, or in certain circumstances, if you don't power the leg into extension, you could drop off the toe and onto the floor.
Yeah.
So the leg would recognise this as a stumble event now in the swing flexion direction and actually put resistance back on. The second would be if you say we're pulling a suitcase through the airport and your heel comes up, hits the suitcase, bounces off it down to the floor. With most of the microprocessor knees, you would have no resistance at that point, or very limited resistance, and you'd end up on the floor. Whereas again, we're looking now, we can look at the stumble recovery in that swing flexion direction.
Okay.
You'll see that had happened and put resistance back on. So it becomes, I mean, I guess it's always still an event, but it's relatively a non-event for you guys, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, because I literally do not fall anymore. Did you guys?
Yeah.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we really want to know is, do you have any technical tips and tricks that will help us make the most of our C-legs, you know, during physical activity or just at home with basic chores?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think probably the number one thing I would say is that the microprocessor knees are super clever, but still you guys that power them. So I think maybe sometimes not enough emphasis is put on people's physical fitness and well-being. So I think that it's not necessarily a tip and trick about the knee itself, but actually getting yourself in condition and actually working hard. We have a fitness app, an Ottobock fitness app.
Yeah.
I wasn't here to sort of mention that and sell that to people. Let's not sell it; it's free.
Yeah.
But you know, but it comes up nicely into that. And using a TheraBand, you know, making sure you don't have hip flexion contractures, these sorts of things. Especially if anyone out there is a very early amputee and you're waiting to be rehabilitated at the moment. The more you can keep yourself conditioned, the more you can prevent flexion contractures, the easier it is then for your prosthetist to be able to get a successful fitting with whichever technology they go for. But obviously in this case we're talking C-Leg 4. But yeah.
Yeah, that's very true, because we have managed Limpower have a fitness program called Movao, don't they? And so many of the participants who have taken part in that, after the course, they have realised that their mobility is so much stronger and they can walk further more confidently after partaking in some sort of physical activity. So that is very true, yeah. And in your opinion, why would you say the C-Leg is the most prescribed microprocessor knee globally? This is great.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of reasons, but I think fundamentally, so the C-Leg was the original microprocessor knee. I remember being at uni, and it's quite nice not to age myself here, but I remember being at uni in 1996.
When?
A friend of mine kindly pointed out that his son's just gone to uni, and can you believe it's 28 years ago we went to uni? I was like, thanks for that. But what's quite interesting is that the C-Leg came out in 1997, the first version, and I remember being at university and we just thought it was around the same price actually as it is now. But other knees at the time were significantly less, and so we kind of thought, well, we'll never see this knee. It's so expensive. So I mean, firstly, the fact we've got to the point where these knees are now routinely prescribed is, you know, thanks to the work of people like Kira and getting this funding for NHS England has been an enormous difference. But going back to your question about why C-Leg, you then therefore have over 25 years now. It's with the 25th birthday last year. Can't do the maths. I think it was last year. And so you've 25 years of development of every aspect of the knee. And that could be the reliability of the knee, it could be the tolerances it's manufactured to. Obviously, we're on the 4th generation on the knee, and we're on the 2nd generation of the 4th generation, so to speak. So it's that constant evolution that I think the reliability is exceptional, really, for a microprocessor knee. But the functionality is always almost had a head start, I think, on potentially other people try and catch up. And it's down to the guys in Vienna pushing that forward and developing and constantly innovating new things means that we've been able to keep in that position of being successful. Yeah, and the other thing, if we talk about from a functionality point of view, I've worked with other microprocessor knees as well, and I think one of the key differences with the Ottobock knees is I feel we're almost a little step ahead at the moment with the implementation of what we call so it's like a gyroscopic sensor in your C-Leg. It's called, we call it the IMU, the inertial measurement unit, and that's one of the sensors that's looking at whether you're walking forwards, whether you're walking backwards, what angulation the shank is at or at any one time. And I think we probably have a deeper implementation of that into like the stance release criteria. So instead of just saying you need to get your toe loads to be over a certain amount, like we did with the C-Leg 3, we now need the need to be extended to be rotating forward and actually forward over the vertical. So it could be that the leg's like out like this, but it's rotating forward, but it's not forward over the vertical. So these criteria, and it means that I don't know if anyone out there will hear. Ottobock are obsessed with talking about safe backwards walking. And obviously it's something you guys would want us to be obsessed about because it's important to you all. But I think sometimes people almost get the hump a little bit because they think that we're somehow comparing to other people's knees. Whereas I think from my experience, we're really looking almost where we were with C-Leg 3 and now where we've gone to with C-Leg 4 as being that we knew there was an issue with you could walk up to a heavy door with a C-Leg 3, get a toe load, and then go to pull the door back, and the leg could collapse underneath you. Whereas with all the Ottobock knees now, this implementation of the IMU into all the decision making, this gyroscopic sensor, it's the same one in your phone, which way up your phone is.
Crazy to think all that technology is going on inside our microprocessor. I never realised that all this is going on simultaneously. I just thought it just, I don't know.
And the other thing I'm
blown away by it all.
And the other thing I really struggle with is how fast 100 times a second is. It's like, it's mental that it can be monitoring it in that sort of accuracy. So, yeah.
How many sensors are there in my leg?
How many sensors are in your leg was the question. Let's put it on the spot there. Let's see. So you've got the knee angle sensor, which is looking at the angulation of effectively the socket versus the shank of the leg. So it's measuring the angulation of the knee. And that can give us information not just about the angle, but how the angle is changing and in which direction it's changing, and also the rate at which it's changing. So how fast the knee is extending or flexing. So for example, you can look at that in two ways. You can look at monitoring how the leg is sitting down with the shank vertical, and the IMU will tell you the shank's vertical and the socket's then bending versus the vertical. But you could equally look at it the other way, that as you're swinging the leg, your stump is relatively vertical and the leg is the one that's actually changing its angle. So by having this sensor data, so we do the IMU is another sensor. We have a sensor that tells us that the knee is fully extended. That's crucial as part of the decision making when to allow you to be, or when to know you're safe and secure. But the really super clever part is not just that you have these 3-4 sensors, but that they all work together and you're actually getting decisions made. So like I say, the most obvious one is if the shank is vertical and the socket is now rotating around to 90 degrees, it's highly likely you're sitting down. And one of the changes with the previous iteration C-Leg 4 update was we actually now have the ability for us, because we set your body weight into the settings, and the knee really accurately selects a resistance level for the activities that you want to do. Previously, the very first versions of the C-Leg 4, you then had one level of resistance that would be working for you all the time, no matter whether you were sitting, walking down a ramp, whatever you were doing. On the new C-Leg 4 now, we're able to actually tell the difference between sitting, and we're able to tell the difference between ramps and stairs versus sitting as two separate options. So we can now make the resistance actually increase slightly, because without going to physics and boring people too much, if you look at lever arms, when we had one level of resistance, as you sat down, your hip and your body weight would get further away from the knee joint. So it's like the bending theory of that bending a ruler over a desk, the same amount of force bends more if you've got a longer lever. So basically, we're now able to tell the difference. So we can drive the motor slightly to keep a consistent rate of flexion of the knee, rather than before it would accelerate slightly. But if you find that you have that switched on for sitting, you can feel actually, most people, when they get to sit down and you get past the first few weeks or months with a C-Leg, sitting down is you just want to get into the chair as soon as possible. So now we can basically make it very free to sit into a chair, but still give you increased support on ramps and stairs. And that's quite a big sort of change actually in how the knee works, really.
Right, so I just want to remind our audience, if you can start to send in your questions. We've heard from Ali about all the technical insights of the C-Leg, and we're going to chat to our C-Leg wearers now, and then afterwards we will open the Q&A with you. So, Kira, why did each of you choose the C-Leg, and how long have you been wearing it?
Hi, so I've been wearing a C-Leg for at least 22 years. The reason I chose it is I actually read a paper that I think was written by Ottobock, where they compared the C-Leg with another microprocessor knee, and I kind of sat down, took notes. I did a pros and cons column. I spoke to a few different prosthetists, and I kind of decided that with the German engineering as well, that my safest bet was to try the C-Leg. And I have actually since tried other microprocessor knees, which are all brilliant. But for me, it's a bit like whether you use an Apple or a PC. For me, the C-Leg just is more intuitive for me, works better with my body, and I trust it implicitly. In fact, I would say that as I'm getting older, I trust my C-Leg more than I trust my impact limb.
I absolutely love that. That's so true as well. David, if you could answer the question as well, please.
Yes, I've been wearing my C-Leg for coming up 6 years, and I was one of the early adopters of the NHS-funded programme. And I tried a couple of different NPKs before I used the C-Leg. I'm a very keen all-terrain cyclist, and I encountered a few glitches with the other knees, the functionality that you need for cycling. And as we all know, the Ottobock cockpit app, if it's still called that, gives you all these different functions, and cycling is the one that I use most, other than my normal everyday functionality. And it's absolutely 100% reliable. In fact, it's so good that I have to remember to reset the normal function when I get off the bike, because a couple of times I've not done that, and then I've ended up sat down abruptly because it's taken out that resistance, and which you don't need when you're cycling, of course. The reliability as well, I think we start to take that for granted.
Yeah.
I've lost, due to other health sort of considerations, about 20 kilos over the last 5 months. But I'm still quite a big, robust chap, and I've had no issues with component failure in coming up 6 years. So as I think I mentioned earlier, I've been living this different life for over 45 years now, and I've experienced component failures across the board, and that's inconvenient. It can occasionally be dangerous. The one thing that my C-Leg has given me is absolute confidence in the strength, robust function of this limb. It doesn't fail. It's very reliable, and I can put my trust in it.
Excellent, thank you. And Sushan, if you could, answer the same question, that would be great.
Sure. So I've been using C-Leg for the past 8 years, since 2016, and my decision came about from my prosthetist's recommendation. So I was pretty active as I understood, like in college. I just graduated back then, and firstly, it was about higher activity level, and secondly, I needed something more reliable as I start my corporate career because, I didn't want to fall into the office. So just wanted something more robust, reliable, and at the same time, that allows me to work for longer hours. So that's how the decision of C-Leg came into the picture, and this was in India in 2016. So I used this is my second C-Leg pair. So first pair went on for about 6 years. Used it very robustly, and along with C-Leg, like it also helped me in my fitness journey. We will talk about it later, but yeah, it's and since last 2 years, NHS is supporting me on my C-Leg.
Wow, amazing. And what can you all do now? What can you achieve as C-Leg wearers that you couldn't do before when it comes to activity and sport? Did you want to go first? So, Serchan.
Sure. So for me, firstly, definitely I can wear my C-Leg for the longer hours. And we talked about reliability. It's highly reliable. So now when I'm playing something or I'm doing pull-ups or even if there's slight amount of jump, I know that my knee is not gonna collapse.
Yeah.
So that reliability is a massive factor. I don't recall if I was able to wear my previous prosthetic set, which was Ottobock 380. It's a great knee joint, but C-Leg is drastically an upgrade from that one.
Yeah.
So in terms of my mobility, movement, my fitness, so there are a lot of things which I was not able to do earlier. C-Leg, because it is reliable, it is safe, so now I'm able to venture into multiple areas. And in fact, my latest adventure was a hike.
I saw.
Yeah. And it was a slant, it was quite slippery, slopey, but I was still able to pull it off because I knew that, okay, the leg is reliable. And there is another parallel to this because I'm able to work for longer hours. I
Yeah.
believe in my mind, I don't have any restrictions from career standpoint that, okay, I need to maybe tone down myself. I can go and get it
Yeah.
from because my leg is allowing me to do that.
You can just live life like everybody else. You don't
Absolutely.
feel so tired, and that's great. Yeah. Kira.
I think if we're talking about it from a fitness perspective, I think the first thing for me is all the research says that if you stand up for longer rather than sitting, you're going to be healthier, you're going to live longer. So if you can be wearing a prosthetic that's going to keep you upright for longer and keep you in the leg for a long portion of the day, that's a really good start.
Yeah.
That also comes down to socket fit. The next thing is then movement. And with a leg that you trust, you're going to move more. And I think that's really, really important. Then you start going into walking. For me specifically, I do a lot of hiking, and having the trust in the leg, you're not just walking on the flat. You can walk uphill, you can walk downhill. I sort of laugh a lot when I say when I'm on a bike or when I'm walking, I go uphill backwards and everyone else sort of overtakes me. But when it comes to the downhill, I catch them all up. And that's because of my trust in the stance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So things like I used to try and do squats and improve this C-Leg. Trying to do a squat when you've got a limit stance control is really, really difficult. But with the new version, where you can actually think you're sitting down, I can actually do a deeper squat. So that was great. And I'm training to go to Machu Picchu and I'm doing 300 squats a day. And you want to get into a rhythm. And if you can't get into a rhythm, it's actually quite a painful experience. And so that's really helped with my fitness training. I'm still not doing anywhere near enough. You can obviously cycle with it now.
Yeah.
I believe I don't play golf, but there is a golf control. So in terms of just enabling us to access fitness, every time there's a new generation, it's adding new modes that are making it easier for us to be active.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good point about the MyMode. So when we had the last iteration of updates last year, We moved to something called MyMotor Plus, which was something that was originally from Genium and has worked its way down, like I say, into the C-Leg 4 as well. And MyMotor Plus was the more complex side of it was to have an influence on what happens extension-wise in a my mode, so you can stop the leg coming to fully straight for horse riding or some sort of activity where you don't want the leg to lock out. But one of my favourite features that came across was you can now have a my mode where the leg is locked. So for say planking or doing something in the gym, but you can now select a stance release. And not everyone's aware of this, that you can now have a locked knee function, but still have the leg release into swing. So you've got to be careful you can't walk down slopes when you're in that mode, but it means that you're at least not having to get the app out, go into a function and then come out the function and walk across the gym to go back into the function. So it's really, really useful, I think. Or if you had it locked for doing a ladder, you could come off the ladder, walk around on the flat, go back on the ladder, you know, switching in and out of the modes all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Very helpful with, you know, working out at the gym and things like that. So
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, this is a poignant question, really, because I'm a little late to the party, perhaps. So I've lived considerably more than 2/3 of my life as an amputee. Getting back to play sport in the early years of my rehabilitation journey, I had to utilise old crude prosthetics to get back to play cricket. That was my main thing. I'm looking back now, if I could have had this technology, this functionality, say 30 plus years ago, I would have got much more out of my sport. I would have potentially had access to more sporting activities than I did. I was using to the max and breaking the equipment that I had at the time because it just wasn't designed for higher levels of activity. This will allow people to access sport and recreation on a higher level. And again, I'm speaking from experience, and I do as much as I can with this. Playing football with my grandsons, this thing works for that. But unfortunately I've retired from cricket now. I wish I'd had this years ago, because I know I would have done a lot more with this.
Much now that all the younger people can take advantage of it and partake more in so many more physical activities available, isn't there? I was going to say when we were hiking Kilimanjaro, the most amazing thing when we realised, Kira and I, that the C-Leg was so special is that we were the only two wearing C-Legs on the hike and the only two that didn't have technical difficulties with our prosthesis. And we got all the way to the top and all the way down to the bottom. And at that moment, I realised the C-Leg was truly something special. And if I'm hiking any particular tough terrain and I've been on top of a mountain and I've been looking down thinking, I would not be able to access this beautiful spot at all on my previous prosthesis, you know. And it's remarkable. We get to live our lives and do the things that we want to do. And it is really great. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's because we joke about the German manufacturing and quality, but it's certainly not just in C-Leg, but personally I drive a Volkswagen Group car because I trust the reliability and that side of things as well. But I have some insight into it from previous experiences I've had in my career, and even just the tolerances that the C-Leg's manufactured to. I'm not saying the other companies can't achieve it, but they've been not able to this point. So they're trying to play catch up, and so it comes right down to that sort of level of detail of microns of the metal to be able to. So for example, whenever you use a lock or intuitive stance on the C-Leg, it's locked solid. It doesn't creep, it doesn't move. It's literally locked, and then it doesn't change its position on you. So yeah, fantastic from that perspective.
Yeah, it is really great.
Yeah.
So, anybody, do we have any tips and tricks to help other amputees get the most out of their C-Legs, other than not forgetting to charge it, of course? But do we have anything else?
I have one
You
quick one.
have?
Yeah,
Excellent.
just to make people, because not everyone's always aware of these things, especially if you're in the cycle and you've had your nearly 5 years. But a couple of years ago, we brought out a USB charger, which is a really useful piece of kit. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if everyone's seen it, and so that would be one top tip. Sometimes people, because the C-Leg battery life realistic is like a day and a half, and so if you want to go camping, the USB charger means you can use a power bank and you can charge the leg on the fly. And there was also some changes in the updates last year as well. So like a deep sleep mode. So if you're getting a long flight, you can put the charger leg and you can put it to sleep. So that's a nice like little innovation. It's a small thing, but
Yeah.
And then the other thing is we also digressing. Just because I've thought of that. We also now with the cockpit app have the facility as prosthetists to, with your permission, see your data in the cloud. So if you have an error or a situation with the knee, we're able to actually connect up via the internet to the data that's held in the Ottobock cloud and have a look at what the errors are. And that's been really, really useful because there's been times where someone's really worried about their knee and they're abroad, and then we send them an email, we can see this data, and it's just that the knee is telling them it's ready for its biannual service. So it's kind of puts their mind at ease straight away.
Excellent. Yes, of course. Kira.
So how would somebody go about accessing that service?
So effectively, we set, so when we first did it, we had all the individual prosthetists would set up an account and then ask you individually. But of course, it was a bit of a daft way of doing things because if your prosthetist was off sick or there was an issue, other prosthetists in the clinic would have to then go through the same process. There are now, we've changed it now, so we now basically give access to that system to the clinic. And then the clinic, someone in charge at the clinic allocates access to their clinic's patient data within the clinic locally. But it's free of charge. I think it's really useful. Where it's really useful to me is that a physio could come through. I'm not sure if they have direct access to it or they'd have to ask the prosthetist to have a look. But it's quite nice in a way not to have the conversation with you when you arrive if you're doing your early rehab and training. And so for example, say they do a session on stairs, and you're doing them really well, but then you go away, the cockpit app will actually, activity tracking wise, be able to see how many stairs you've then done between then and next time. I think it's a bit personal to ask someone to look at their phone, to look at that data and say, oh, you've not really done stairs since last time we did it. Do you really feel confident or not? And just steer the conversation on what session you want to do. Whereas Cockpit Connect, I think it's really good. It just allows you to look at that data. Again, it's with your permission. You can refuse or refute the permission at any time. But yeah, you can look at that and say, well, do you know what? I've noticed you're not doing stairs. Did you still not feel confident, or have you just not come across any stairs? Yeah, it's a clever system.
It sounds like it can also save on the clinic some time. So if I'm on holiday on the way doing something and I have an issue, like a call in, they can look on the app, somebody could fix it and you haven't got to go into the clinic to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think at the moment, so we can't make adjustments. So it's, in a way, that's a nice thing. You don't want someone to be able to access your knee and adjust it necessarily. But I say that's a nice thing because I suspect that might go that way in the future. So only an authorized person could actually make a tweak. But then we don't really need to do it because also in the cockpit app you have the ability to make adjustments to the settings, as you know. So it could actually be a case of, we could tell you to make a change on the cockpit app. But certainly as a diagnostic, I'll give you an example. I had a chap in Wales who lived out near Aberystwyth, and basically he had a fault with, I think, a genium, and we were able to see it was a genuine fault. So rather than him have to drive to Wrexham, find out with the software it is a genuine fault, order a loaner knee, so in which case he's driven 3 hours back or 2 hours back, whatever it is, and then 2 hours back to the clinic to get the loaner fitted. We were able to say, look, he needs a loaner knee ordering. They ordered a loaner knee, and within like the next day or the day after that, he drove once to the clinic to have it switched over, and then once when it came.
Excellent patient.
Yeah, and it's really useful for certain areas with remote patients. So I think north of the border, some of the Isles and stuff like this, it could be really useful for them as well.
Can I give some tips?
Yes, of course you can. And then afterwards, I have quite a few questions coming in from the audience, so we could probably get after this. We can get started with that.
So I've got a couple of tips. One of them is I'm a Londoner. I don't live in London anymore, but I used to really worry about going on the escalators and walking downstairs because people were pushing and shoving, and activating the stance control on the escalator. You know that you're not going anywhere, and that has made my confidence in traffic and public transport so much higher. So learn how to use your stance control on an escalator, and it will change your life. The second one, and I'm not sure if I'm technically correct, but if you are away on holiday and you're doing a trek, you can save battery life. And I could be wrong, by if you turn your leg upside down and bend it. Does that? I think Emma said that saves battery.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think I'm right saying if it's stood still for 2 minutes anyway. So if you're not wearing the leg, if it's still, it'll go to battery saving. But also whenever you sit down, the leg goes into like a sitting function, so it's all the resistances are loose in the knee, and whenever it's in that functionality, it's also in a battery saving functionality as well. So yeah, I think if you're going to turn upside down, you're probably not wearing it at the time. So I think as long as you leave it still for 2 minutes, it'll go to sleep. But also, as I say now, you have the deep sleep mode, and the deep sleep mode will turn off because all the sensors are always. So if I had a C-Leg 4 and I charged it today to do a trial tomorrow, it would lose a load of power even if it was just sat in the boot of my car and it wasn't really moving. Whereas the deep sleep mode effectively will disable everything that's going on in the leg, all of the power drain, apart from, I believe, it's the Bluetooth chip, or it's like a little lonely thing, like just listening to see if there's a wake-up call. Should I wake up yet? No. Should I wake up yet? No. And so it's a tiny, tiny amount of power that it uses in that mode.
Can we turn that on?
Yes, in the cockpit. It has to be enabled in Data Station, which is our programming software. But then once it's enabled, it will appear as a square in your cockpit app, and you just hit the square and it goes to sleep.
So I'll go and check that. Then my third one, which I don't know if you've noticed, but both me and David have got, is we've got this rotator.
Yeah.
Can I just give you that on the horse?
Yeah, those are incredible. I'm very jealous.
360
I've
degrees.
got one.
360 degrees, which is a great party trick, of course.
Yeah.
So if you've got small children and you're taking them to clubs and classes, you can sit on the floor like everybody else and not feel different, which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I very first started at the company I worked for previously, one of the amputees that worked in R&D, he called me over to just have a talk to me about rotators and the benefits of them. And I'd never really thought about it to that point as to one of the major benefits is that when you sit in, say, AN Irish airline, where you don't get as much leg room as some other airlines, then basically, or a bus, you can be limited on space, but you also have this top brim of your socket pushing into you because you have to sit very upright. And with your rotator, if you actually rotate your rotator around this way and then allow it just to sit behind you, actually your residual limb can sit flatter onto the seat and come away from you here. And it's so overlooked, but if you're anytime you're in the car and it's like it's sat like this, if you clip this round and then it allows that just to take this pressure away from here. So they're really useful from that perspective now as well. Yeah.
So for me, it's an early on day. When I moved from 3R80 to C-Leg felt a little heavier because it's a more robust knee joint, and I can imagine with all these hydraulics, it would be heavy. So strength training of my leg really helped me out, which included flexion, extension exercises, adduction, induction exercises. So maintaining that overall mobility helped me, and strength helped me that better to my C-Leg.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody is planning to move to C-Leg, I would strong and agnostic of actually C-Leg. If you're an amputee, I think working on your limb strength and mobility would significantly improve your life.
Yeah, 100%. And work with your core as well, getting back.
Yeah, and I think it's a really valid point. I know today we're here to talk about C-Leg 4, but it's probably a good sojourn into Kinevo. So the teams now in the NHS are getting so experienced now at knowing which amputees are suitable for a C-Leg 4. Because we keep talking about fitness and strength and knees and conditioning, but also cognitively, you need to have an ability to control the resistance and control the C-leg floor to some extent, and your body needs to be strong enough to do that. Good gluteal control, your bum muscles need to be good to control the leg. But it's also brilliant now that we have Movao, which is deliberately aimed at, to some extent, being able to help as a rehabilitation tool, but in some cases staying as a knee that can work for people that don't have that control and wouldn't manage with the C-leg floor or the other microprocessor knees. So yeah, really useful.
And I think it also needs to happen and continue, because for me, the way I split my workouts, one day is entirely dedicated to lower body mobility.
Yeah.
So core and legs, I work out together. So yeah, that really helps.
Yeah.
And did you find when you were up in your physical activity and fitness that you became more mobile after doing that a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one anecdote. So last year I went to Prague in Vienna, and I just kept walking around the city. So my able-bodied friend, she got tired, and but I easily walked about 25,000 steps a day without even getting tired.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. But that's when I realized, okay, the strength training is paying off.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it really adds up.
Yeah.
You took your knees home, effectively, didn't you, back to Vienna? So it's like,
Right, okay. Thank you, everyone. That's great. Let's get some questions from the audience. So I've got, for those of us that are on NHS C-Leg 3 or older, are we required to get a software update on our legs, or is that not necessary?
I'm almost 100% certain I'm right in saying that if you're on C-Leg 3, you should be looking to probably get the knees exchanged to C-Leg 4, because C-Leg 3 is way older than the lifespan of the product age-wise. And I think it's probably quite worth mentioning. Sometimes I think as manufacturers, there's a cynicism where they think people sometimes think that we just want to sell you a new C-Leg after 6 years, but it's also a safety issue, and it's driven by medical device regulations that we can do 3 million or several million more cyclic tests on the knees to check that they're safe for you. Eventually, they will break on test machines. I'm not saying 5 million, but eventually the mental fatigue will eventually kick in. And the problem is that when you have a leg and you're over the 6 years, we don't know what it will do beyond the 6 years. So the safety first option has to be that we recommend that the knees are replaced, at that point.
What if they've got the C-Leg 3, but they haven't had it for 6 years? So they just
No, so it's impossible to have in theory, it's impossible to have a C-Leg 3 that's 6 years old.
Okay.
Because it got discontinued more than 6 years ago.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question from Tom as well to all the C-Leg users. What was the effect of the technique on your rehab, and what about early rehab with the C-Leg 4? Yeah. So Dan,
Could you repeat the question once?
Okay, so Tom was asking, what was the effect of the technique on your rehab, and what about early rehab with the C-Leg 4?
By technique.
I'm not sure what technique may be.
Yeah, but I think
Just
maybe
technology.
Yeah.
is it like how technology worked?
Yeah,
Initially that.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so I think with respect to C-Leg, understanding the cockpit app and understanding those different modes helped me gain that confidence also in the leg. So earlier, what used to happen is when I was on a hydraulic knee joint, I would, like the knee would snap and I would fall down, and it really hurts over there. And but with C-Leg, I think it took me a while to gain that confidence, and it's only when I played around with different modes I gained that confidence. Okay, it's not going to snap on me. So yeah, that really helped with initial rehab along with the strength and mobility trainings.
Okay, and I have a question from Lawrence as well. Ottobock are moving towards the Genium X4 model, which is upmarket on the existing standard Genium, and one imagines more expensive. Is it likely that the cost of the C-Leg 4 revised will also become more expensive for those who are choosing to invest and buy? Do you think?
Oh, I'm on the spot there, aren't I? It's possible. I don't know. I think probably the Ottobock have done a really good job of keeping the price globally of the C-Leg 4 in that kind of window where it lives already. So I don't think we'll see anything that is more than an inflationary increase to that model and keeping that knee where it is. And especially because you know, we look at the NHS environment, but we look at other developing markets, India, some of the other places, you know, maybe not India so much because the process is quite advanced there already, but there are developing markets where they're back in where I was in 1996, 97, 97,
Yeah.
the C-Leg is aspirational, you know, and it is aspirational to many of you guys, but it's like the be all and end all where you can get to. So there's only, I think they do try to keep it in that kind of window. Also, I think where people are a little bit surprised is that the X4 has actually not increased in cost that much over the X3. I think it's gone up by a few percent, but then it's not going to go up in the next price rises. So actually by next year, it'll be similarly priced to the X3 was now. So we were sort of almost quite pleasantly surprised that was the case as well, really, because I mean, let's face it, because that is
Everything goes up in price, doesn't
everything
it?
goes up,
Natural.
yeah.
So I got a message here from Teresa in Scotland. Hello. She's saying that she's had a lot of falls with her mechanical leg, which obviously when I had a mechanical leg, I used to fall over all the time as well. So since she's been falling lots on her mechanical leg, she's finding it difficult to trust her C-Leg, and she's really active and wants to get up in the hills and do hiking, but she's been struggling. She's had the C-Leg for nearly 2 years, but she's still struggling to get up and down hills with trust. So I could possibly say that from my own experiences of coming from a mechanical knee to a C-Leg, it just really, as long as it's all aligned and it's all fitted correctly for you, you shouldn't be falling over, like stumbling or anything like that. And it does take time to build up this trust, but it will come, won't it? Over time, it just naturally kicks in and you feel more confident with it. I think Kira wants to mention something as well.
Hi, Teresa. What I would say is if you are going to go out into the hills and you're slightly nervous, take walking poles because they're really lightweight. They'll just help you with that trust because they give you that tripod stance, and then gradually move from 2 to 1. And then when you're feeling more confident, you know, just drop them, even if it's only for 100 steps, couple of 100 steps, and just gradually build that trust. But the more you walk outdoors, the more you will start to trust in the limb.
And the better conditioned you'd be, the better control you'll have over the leg. But I think Rebecca's point was a good one as well. I mean, alignment is something crucial, and it's not always the fault of the prosthetist that the alignment could be incorrect. You know, I saw a chap last week who's had quite serious other health ailments since we first put him on C-Leg 4. He's been sitting down for a lot and has contracted in the hip. So now the angulation is different to what it was when we fitted the C-Leg to it. And the C-Leg was a bit unstable, but we fitted a flat shift adapt like you have, and we were able to get him more stable. So, I think if you're in any doubt, most clinics are sort of relatively happy, you know, for one of us to come along from the academy to have a second opinion, have a look as well. So that's maybe an option that you could explore.
And I'd also say as well, take short distances and just increase those over time as your confidence increases. And I still, whenever I go out hiking, I always use one hiking pole. I like that balance, and I like having something there to assist me whilst I'm hiking. So yeah, it's great to have a hiking pole. I have a message from Claire. She skis without my ski leg on. So do I, Claire. However, I understand there is a C-leg ski setting. How does that work? I didn't know this. And what about ankle angulation required for skiing? My current ankle won't allow for that. Great question, Claire. Over to you, Ali.
Well, funnily enough, I've been lucky to be involved with a few people on the ski slopes when we, have gone to actually, because we do an actual proper skiing leg, which I think maybe she's referring to, I'm not sure.
That's the pro card.
The pro card, yeah. And so we've done some comparative trials sometimes where people who are relatively early in their sort of rehab have tried the pro calf and actually preferred the skiing function in the microprocessing aid as just sort of being a little bit safer, more secure. And then pro calf is really aimed at kind of semi-professionally, kind of people who are properly skiing, like rapidly. So yeah, it's one of the my modes. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the my modes. So it'll have a fixed range of flexion that the knee is able to move through to a lock. So I can't remember the skiing. I don't know if it's 15, 20 degrees, but we can change it as well because people's skiing techniques are different. But it's effectively, we can change not just the angle it will lock out, but also how it ramps up its resistance to that angle. So if you might have your normal setting of say 150 is arbitrary how it is in the software, you might find for the skiing you want it to be 165, 170, so that because you kind of dynamically moving. Yeah, and for example, now with the Mind Modes Plus, you might want to not have it come to fully straight, but only ever come back to 5 degrees from fully straight, so that it doesn't lock out underneath you. It's always in that range of movement. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I have another question here. I've tried playing golf this week for the first time as a bilateral C-leg user. Congratulations. It brought out a challenge I regularly face in daily life. Yeah, it's so hard doing new things. Slightly bending the knees and holding them while keeping my balance. Any tips on how to improve a golf swing stance? I guess it's talking about. Does anyone think so?
It's the C-leg.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about how to improve a golf swing. You should see mine. It's horrendous. But yeah, I think again it comes down to these my modes, and there is the golf my mode. And actually, the golf my mode now you can select so that you have flexion from an angle to say, I'm trying to think of golf, it's normally about 28, 30 degrees flexion. And then so having that ability to lean into the legs while they're flexed and get into the pose that the golf swing you need to be in is a big part of it. But you can also set the stance release now. So if you were playing golf and you were using a buggy, as long as you're not going over slopes that are kind of 5, 10 degrees, you could actually have them in the golf mode, but still switching into swing.
Okay.
But you've got to be careful when you go onto the tee box and it's quite steep. You try to yield down, you suddenly get catapulted because you're locked in that mode. But yeah.
Thanks.
Do you play golf?
No, but I play cricket.
Oh, yeah.
I can draw balance from batting. So of course, things you mentioned about the resistance and ankle. I think another area that helps is having the ankle adapter. I don't know what it's called. I think torsion adapter, which essentially helps with the rotation of the ankle. So when you are swinging, it actually helps you like stay stable on the ground, but at the same time, give it a great shot as well. So I think, so in addition to C-leg, the adapter really helps.
Yeah. Do you have it on both sides, the adapter? Yeah.
So when I'm back, I'm like, when I'm hitting, so it just really helps maintain that balance.
Yeah. Good.
Right, guys, that's all we've got time for today, I'm afraid. We're going to have to wrap this up. However, I've got lots of questions from you all, and we will take a look at these and we will get back to you and answer all these. If you're watching the recording, please do continue to send your questions because, as I said earlier, we want to keep the conversation flowing and we want to support everybody out there. I want to say a big thank you to my amazing panel of guests. And yeah, thank you from myself and the rest of the Movao Live team. And we hope to welcome you back to a future episode. Take care, everybody. Bye.